Good afternoon. Welcome back. Glad you found us. Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully you're staying healthy, staying inside away from all this craziness. Today we're talking about Anson Jones and the annexation of Texas into the United States of America. Texas finally becoming a state. And without further ado, let's jump into it. So let's jump into the screen right here. So the first thing we need to do is we need to talk about the arguments for and against annexation. So some of the arguments that are against annexation is Texans wanted to be part of the United States, but some didn't. Mexico still did not accept Texas as an independent nation. They didn't accept that they won the Texas won the revolution, and so if the United States annexed Texas, the United States was fearful that Mexico might want to go to war because they think that Texas belongs to them. Okay, so think about it like this: if your brother or your sister took something of yours, okay, and you thought that they had said that you could have it, but they don't think that they did. Basically, that's Mexico and Texas. But then your brother or sister is wanting to give that away from somebody else, and they said, "Well, hey, where'd you get that?" I said, "Oh, I got it from my brother or sister." Well, do they know you have it? Well, yeah. I don't really believe you. I don't want any problems with them. I don't want to get beat up by your brother or sister because you took something that's not theirs and now I have it. And so that's basically how the United States felt, right? They didn't want to necessarily annex Texas right off the bat because Mexico still were laying claim to it, right? Did they have a reasonable claim to it? Who knows, right? In their mind, they didn't feel like they rightfully lost Texas. They felt like Santa Anna kind of gave up on the war, surrendered, and they still could have won it, which they probably could have, because Urrea's army was out there in Texas and everything like that. So Mexico didn't really think that Texas had won its independence, and so that's kind of hindering the United States' want to or drive to annex Texas into the Union of the United States. Number two was slavery. So at this point, the United States was perfectly balanced in slave states versus free states. Now, if you know anything about the United States government, in the Senate and the House, right, you have representatives from each state, but in the Senate you have probably more power than in the House of Representatives. And so if each state has 2 representatives, you've got 13 slave states, so you got 26 representatives that are pro-slavery, you've got 26 that are against slavery. Texas at this point was a slave-holding state if it had been admitted as a state. They had slaves in Texas, and so that was going to admit them into the slave union, or the slave population, I guess, and that was going to really sway the balance in the slave state versus free state. So it would have been 14 slave states, which means they would have had 2 more votes in the Senate, versus 13 free states, which means the free states would have had less votes in the Senate. And so that balance was going to be upset had Texas entered the Union as a slave state. Number 3 was the debt. So we talked about in the last video with Sam Houston that there is $12 million in Texas debt, and so that money is going to have to come with them, right? That doesn't just go away overnight because, hey, we joined a new country, so we no longer have debt. No, the Texans still had to pay that debt. So the United States is going to annex Texas. That debt comes with it. So until Texas could pay off that debt, basically the money owed wasn't going to be incurred by the United States. So Texas had to take care of that debt before they were able to be annexed in. Now, arguments for. And there was quite a bit of people for. Number one is manifest destiny. We've talked about manifest destiny, but it's been a while. Okay, manifest destiny is the belief that the United States has a God-given right to stretch from Atlantic Ocean to Pacific Ocean. Okay, from sea to sea. That's the God-given right that is thought to be manifest destiny. So if you look at the map, right here, you see the Republic of Texas and that disputed territory between Mexico and Texas. That's getting them one step closer to getting there, right? If it stops right here, the only other place you could go is up here, which the United States kind of owned all this already, but this is a kind of a weird path to get through instead of, you know, coming straight across. So that was one of the arguments for, like, hey, if we take on this land, we're one step closer to becoming our manifest destiny idea. Number two is the economic growth. Texas and the rest of the West provided land for more settlement, more farming, more opportunity, more everything, right? So the more land you have, the more people you can have. The more people that you have, the more money they can make. The more money they can make, the richer your nation, so on and so forth. So that was a big selling point for people to say, hey, you know, they've already got some economy started down there. If we open it up and, you know, it's protected under the United States, and you got the United States laws, the United States currency, and everything like that, we can make even more money. More people go down there, and, you know, just continue that economic growth that is possible in these states. So annexation does eventually happen, obviously. We're sitting in Texas, which is a state in the United States of America. We're not currently sitting in the Republic of Texas. So we know that annexation happens eventually. So like we said at the end of the last video, Sam Houston made a wild run at it, right? He basically got everything in place to get Texas annexed, but it failed in the Senate. So it was on to none other than Dr. Anson Jones, who was elected president in Texas in 1844, and then the United States President, James K. Polk. So the combination of Jones and Polk was basically a match made in heaven for Texas and the United States. They were able to come together and get a deal done, have a solution, everything like that. That solution came in the terms of the Compromise of 1850. So the biggest problem was we didn't want to unbalance that slave portion. Okay, so this Compromise of 1850 is proposed by Henry Clay, which admits California as a free state, which is going to be great for the North, and then it puts in Texas as a slave state, so that makes it to 14 and 14, which is going to please the South. So it keeps that balance in there together. Slave trade was banned in Washington, D.C., which also pleased the North. It established the present-day boundaries of Texas, so if you wonder why our borders are the way they are, thank you, Compromise of 1850. And then all of that land that was left, if we looked here, right, so our boundaries basically goes here, and then like, it's basically here, and then up, and then here. Okay, so all of this other land that Texas owned that is not part of Texas anymore is going to be sold off for $10 million to pay off that state debt. So all of this land is, somebody said, all right, that's worth $10 million, and that's basically everything that Texas needed to pay off their debt. I mean, it was $12 million, but we talked about how they kept money into the government instead of paying the debt. So that $12 million was able to be paid off with the 10 and probably the money that they had still in there. Utah and New Mexico territories in Mexican secession have popular sovereignty to decide on slavery, which pleases the South. And the Fugitive Slave Act is passed, which basically means that if your slave escapes, then it's got to come back to you. So statehood officially begins on February 26, 1845, when the United States Congress approves a joint resolution accepting Texas as the 28th state in these United States of America. So 28th state, Mexico does not accept it, which is going to lead to a conflict here in a little while. But a state constitution of Texas is quickly drafted. It's basically still the same one we have today, except for some amendments. And then February 19th, 1846, Jones announces the official annexation. So terms of that annexation, what did it entail? What had to be done in order to get there? Texas becomes a state as soon as the Texans vote for annexation, which is why it kind of took a little while for Polk to actually be able to announce it. So the United States passes it, they get word that they've passed it, then you've got to wait for a Texans vote to get it done, and then the Texans pass it, obviously, because we're sitting in Texas, not the Republic of Texas. Texas could keep all of its public lands, but would have to sell some to pay off the debt to the United States, which we talked about. The United States would provide military protection and postal service to Texas. That military protection is going to come into play here in a little while because we already said that Mexico didn't accept it. So you know they're not going to go into the night quietly. They're going to come back trying to look for what is, in their opinion, rightfully theirs. Texas would enter the United States as a territory and not a state. So this is a pretty cool picture. Here it's a painting of them taking down the Texas flag right here, which you can see they took down the Texas flag. That's the star, the white and the red, and they're putting up the American flag because the Texas has officially become part of the United States of America. So on February 19, 1846, a ceremony in the Capitol in Austin, President Anson Jones declares the Republic of Texas is no more. Texas, the first governor, J. Pinckney Henderson, took over as the leader of the 28th state. So our first governor, J. Pinckney Henderson. And that's it. Congratulations. You've made it through your first unit on Canvas. Now all you have to do is go through, study for the test, or the quiz. It's not a test. Study for the quiz and take it and make an A on it because you're super smart and you've been trying really hard to stay on top of all of your stuff. And you're done with the first unit. The next unit's coming, but now that you're done with everything, you might have a little celebration. Maybe take a break, watch a little TV. After you take the test, of course. Maybe play a little Fortnite. Show your mom, hey mom, I'm done. And I got 100 on this test, or quiz, excuse me. I got 100 on this quiz because I'm super smart. And Coach Patterson's videos have been really helpful, I hope. Anyway, that's the end of this unit, end of the Republic of Texas. Statehood has come. We are now part of the United States forever and always. You thought we're not. We're actually going to leave the United States, but we'll get there in a future unit. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully it is valuable to you. Hopefully you're staying safe, staying healthy, because whenever we do return back to school, I want to see your smiling faces. If you're in a different class, I'm glad you found us. Hopefully it's helpful to you. If you need anything from any of your teachers or myself, do let us know. We're here to help. We'll see you in the next one.